kind of rain that slapped you and made your cheeks sting. The sort of rain that runs down your neck and wets your shirt. The kind of rain you run through. But I couldn't run. Besides, I hadn't far. The local station master saw me and offered me his umbrella, but I was in a hurry. We'd meet again later and become friends on account of his young daughter, Kathy. You'll meet her soon enough. She was my first friend in Oxgodby, and now looking back, the one I regret and miss the most. I'd come to do a job in the local parish church, so it was there I trudged and slid across fields of cows and sheep. After about a mile, I turned the corner of a high hedge and was in an open pasture. And there she was, the church. It was an off-the-peg job. Evidently there had been no medieval wool in these parts, but she looked in good repair, no trace of green in the walls, a good sign. If I'd have seen a trace, I'd have turned and gone. No point starting if there was damp, but the signs were good, so I turned the handle of the door and walked in. It was dry and sound, and they'd already erected scaffolding next to the wall where I was to work. A ladder lay against it, invited my feet to start, but before I made a move...
You must be Birkin. I'm Keach, the vicar here. You're late and wet and dripping.
Well, it is raining and I couldn't afford a carriage, but I see you have a stove, perhaps...
No, absolutely not. The use of a stove was not in our agreement. You are here to uncover a painting, if such thing exists. The use of a stove was not in our agreement. It would cost us money.
Well, you could take it out of my wage.
You could start a fire.
Hardly. That's a grand stove, and it would take a deal of mishandling to cause any upset of the hot coals that might start a fire.
Very well. I will consult with the trustees as the appropriate amount to deduct. Where will you be staying? Where can I find you?
I rather hoped I could make use of your belfry. I'd be out of the way. I don't need much in the way of comfort, and I have no money, so I can't afford to live in a local hotel.
The belfry? Are you out of your mind?
No, merely out of pocket. I keep myself to myself, cause no problems with your worship on Sundays, keep things tidy, and be able to keep an eye on things as we progress. If you have what I think you have under all that grime and paint, you'll have a real treasure. Something to pull in the crowds for miles around.
I'd have to charge you rent.
No doubt you could take that out of my payment.
Very well. Look, I must tell you, Mr. Birkin, I do not approve of this project. In fact, I voted against it. But the late Miss Harebron, our benefactress, would only release money as promised to the church in her will, providing that this work was done. So
you wanted the money and you agreed to the inconvenience. Well, it won't be for long. You'll soon forget I'm here. I'm obliged.
Very well. I shall get you some blankets. I'll leave you to look around. Goodbye, Mr. Birkin, and take care. You were in the war, I understand.
Yes, I was.
Yes, I thought so. Well, goodbye.
A strange man, the Reverend Keach. In all my time, I never got to know him or even like him. He was a fish out of water. Why God had seen fit to send him to Yorkshire, I'll never know. The stove, a banked-down crowther, was a beast, but I soon had it go in and left my coat to dry before ascending the ladder to look on the wall. I couldn't see anything yet, but I knew it was there. A judgment. It was bound to be a judgment because they always got the plumb spots where the parishes couldn't avoid seeing the god-awful things that would happen to them if they didn't fork out their tithes or marry the girls they got with child. My first job. And I just knew this was going to be something good, something really splendid, something astonishing. That night, I slept well for the first time in, well, since the war, really. And that first morning when I awoke, I rolled up my blanket and, avoiding the bell rope, walked across to the south window and gazed. The rain of the night had ceased, and the dewdrops glittered on the graveyard grass. A couple of blackbirds were picking around after insects, and a thrush was singing in the ash trees. There was a bell tent pitched by the stream, and fields and trees, and God help me, in the first few moments of that first morning, I felt that this alien northern landscape was friendly. This was what I needed, a new start, and then afterward, maybe I wouldn't be a casualty anymore.
Hello? Sorry, I was going to let you settle in before I came over, but I
I just couldn't wait to meet another foreigner. I'm Moon, Charles Moon. That's my tent, you can see from the window. I'm an archaeologist, of sorts. I'm engaged to look for the grave of our benefactress, the late Miss Hairbron's forebear. The lady whose money is paying for you as well. I'm looking for Piers Hairbron. 1373, or thereabout.
And do you expect to find it?
I expect I will, although could be anywhere. But I have some ideas. The Colonel, the old lady's brother, he'll be across the chat. He's a nice old soul. Totally do-lally, but helpful in a friendly kind of way. He won't be sorry if I find it, and won't be happy if I do. So, what about you? What are you hoping to find under all this whitewash?
A judgment. I have no evidence yet, but I have this feeling deep down in my gut that this is something special, something to really shake the establishment. I can feel his presence, the artist, a genius. And when I start, I'll feel his hands guiding mine, making me take the very greatest care. His spirit in tune with mine.
Well, that is unexpected. But you aren't the only person finding something unexpected. A Saxon basilica. It's out there, in the field. It's the reason I took the job. I saw it as I was flying over. I'm secretly digging it out under the cover of my tent.
All the while pretending to be looking for the grave of this Piers Hairbron.
Well, yes. Well, not pretending to look. I'll find it in time. But the basilica, it's like your judgment. It will make the world sit up. It will make my name. Fancy a cup of tea? You can come by the tent. I've got a billy on board.
And thus was a pattern established. Every morning we'd start with a cup of tea in Moon's tent and talk about the war. An honest talk. He'd seen my tip and watched my hands and knew what hell I'd been through. He understood. That was enough. Then I'd start work. By the end of the second day, a fine head had been revealed. Sharp beard, drooped moustache, heavy-lidded eyes outlined black, no trace of cinnabar on the lips. This was a measure of the painter's calibre. He knew in 20 years the cinnabar would be black. Then the first tinges of garment appeared. Ultramarine, that prince of blues, ground from lapis lazuli. All this had a seal of quality way beyond the parish church's budget. Had the artist stolen his paints from an abbey nearby? The Italian masters, they could have learned a thing or two about that head. This was no catalogue Christ, insufferably ethereal. This was a wintry hardliner. A dealer of justice with no time left for mercy now. I reached his raised right hand. It was still pierced.
Hello? Are you Mr. Birkin? I guess you must be. You're a plan of painting.
Not painting, restoring.
Have you got a brush in yet?
Yes, but it's dipped in... never mind. Who are you?
Oh, I'm Kathy Olivet. My dad's a station master. I've come to find out what you're up to so I can tell my family and the village. I've also come to bring you a present. My mum says it must be awful lonely in this spot. It'll keep you company. It's a wind-up gramophone with some records. Classical music like and religious stuff. Do you want me to set it going?
Yeah.
Do you mind?
No.
I play the organ myself. I'm good. I'd play at the chapel. I'd never be allowed to play here. The vicar would have my hide.
He'll have mine if I don't get on.
Oh, understood. Perhaps I'll come again. Might even bring my brother. We won't mind here. Just watch. I love watching people work.
Right, well, thanks for the music and goodbye. And she was gone. But she kept her promise and came back most days, and we'd sit and listen to the music as it drifted up through the church and out the windows and into the fields. Moon would sometimes whistle along or come in and sit with us, but Kathy never liked that. She never took to Moon, but she took to me. I loved her for her simple acceptance of this broken, unkempt slip of a man. She was my first friend, my best friend, if best friends are those that ask nothing of you and offer you acceptance unconditionally. Even Moon had his conditions, and Alice. I'd fallen asleep on a tombstone in the hot sun and was dreaming of pain and judgments and friends lost in sunken ground far from here. I shook myself awake and there she was, wearing a dusky pink dress, leaning against a grey limestone wall and looking toward me. Have you been there long?
Maybe 10 minutes? I'm not sure. My name's Alice Keach. I'm the vicar's wife. I came to see if you were comfortable in the Velvet. Is there anything you need? Did you sleep well? I could let you have the travelling rug. We don't use it this time of year. My husband said you walked here from the railway station. I mean, you can't have been carrying much, so I'm supposing you're sleeping on the floor.
I'm fine. I have a sleeping bag and a top coat. I use a hassock for a pillow. I hope that's all right. I'd hate to commit some form of sacrilege.
I'm afraid you must think of us inhospitable. You're on the floor and us tucked up in our cosy beds.
Oh, it suits me fine. I'm so tired at the end of the day, I don't need a feather bed to aid me to sleep. I like your hat. The rose.
Oh, it's from my garden. A very special rose. Especially attractive to bees, you know. Wouldn't there be something that we can see?
Well, it's a little like a jigsaw, a piece at a time. Not clear yet what it is we're seeing, but in time.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Not knowing what you might find. Must be like opening a parcel at Christmas. Anyway, I shan't forget the rug, and perhaps you'll be kind enough to show me how the jigsaw is fitting together. You won't mind if I haunt you a little, will you, Mr. Birkin? Ah, Mr. Moon. Good morning.
You've had the lovely Alice to see you. I saw her in the yard. It seemed that you two had a lot to say to each other.
Now, don't you find her a bit of a stunner? Fancy that gem of purest ray serene, hidden in Oggs Godfrey's unfathomable caves. Well, go on, admit it.
She's a beauty, all right. Quite extraordinary, in fact. Though maybe she doesn't know it.
Rubbish. All women know it. But, fancy that. Look, it's an outrage. It's almost as big an outrage as Keach capturing her and having the moment that he got her to sign on the sanctified line, other men could go as far as that line and no further. It's a devil.
Well, maybe he's all she wants.
Oh, come on. You've seen him. Worse, you've heard him. She's lost to the world. More's the pity.
The work went well. The picture was so well preserved. It had been hidden behind a lime wash shortly after its completion, for some reason I could only guess at. Then over the centuries, after each 50 years or so of candle and taper smoke, paraffin lamps and that stove, the picture had taken another layer of cover-up. So my job, once I got the hang of it, involved cleaning away the years to the painting beneath. Shuffling sideways on my scaffolding, stretching and cleaning, a rhythm of movement like a dance that brought joy to my soul and an assurance that in time, everything would be all right.
Morning, Miss Birkin! I have good news for you. Your mum says she's to come for lunch this Sunday after chapel. And then afterwards you'll be so good as to help at the Sunday school with the Dafties. The food was good. You need a decent meal. We have good company. We always have the preacher for lunch, and then he takes an afternoon nap in the parlour before taking the evening service. Oh, you will come, and if we like you, which I'm sure we will, there'll be a regular place for you. That's a promise. What do you say?
I said yes. She was a very organising girl, had it all cut and dried, so on Sunday I made a special effort to look presentable, so as not to let her down, turned up at the bidden hour, and almost immediately we sat at the starched tablecloth. Mr. Ellerbeck then launched into a grace of impressive length, possibly in an attempt to impress the visiting preacher. Ever since that long ago Sunday, I've wondered why it is that men with large moustaches have this facility for declamatory prayer. The preacher's own grace at tea time was much shorter, less intimate. He had a sharply clipped moustache, like Charlie Chaplin. Little was said at the Elevec table. The principal reason for the gathering was the eating and the relishing of all that was set before us, and there was a mountain of roasts, Yorkshire puddings, vegetables, potatoes, more than I'd eaten in years. But we managed. We all managed, until the end was signalled by a vigorous scraping of plates and thanks given to Mrs. Elevec. Then it was off to the parlour for the preacher and Sunday school for me, where I was allotted 3 thick-set lads who asked me lots of questions about life in London and taught me how to make buttonholes from straws. In the silences we shared, there was a comfort, and the Sunday school superintendent was so impressed by my work, though totally godless in content, that he proceeded to enrol me for the duration of my stay, and I was happy to help. I was happy to be part of that family in its chapel, believer or no, because I was touched by their love and impressed by their unconditional hospitality, which spoke more to me of a loving God than any of the endless dreary sermons I've been forced to endure. On the way back with Cathy, I was invited to visit with Emily Clough, who Cathy told me was very sick and liked to have a visit on a Sunday so she could hear the gossip.
Now, Emily is very poorly, so you will have to be kind to her. Told her all about you. She's very excited to see you.
And has she been ill for long?
Oh, ever so long.
Ah.
Right, here we are then. Now, best behaviour, Mr. Birkin, and be kind.
I was made most welcome. Emily and Cathy chattered about the Sunday school, the prizes they would get, and books like Children of the New Forest and Coral Island. Emily was a pale, wan figure, like a ghost on the bed, but she had eyes that sparkled and a smile that near moved me to tears. She asked me if I would show her my work when she was better, and I promised. She knows she's dying, doesn't she?
She knows, but she pretends not to. It's better that way. She's very brave, and her faith is a comfort. But my mum says she won't last the summer. She'll never see your picture.
I'm glad of it. It would terrify her. But I'm glad to have met her. She is very brave, though she'd probably hate me for saying it.
You can go again if you like. I visit every Sunday. She's my best friend. Well, at least she's for now. Right, we best make a move. I promised my mum we'd bring you back for tea.
Money was getting tight by this time, so I took my courage in both my hands and decided to ask Teach for what was owing. The house was in a clearing, but what had once been a driveway for carriages was now blocked by a vast stricken cedar. The once white bricks of the house had taken on a greenish tinge, which gave them a damp look. It was a severe block of a building, saved only from total ruin by a twin-pillared portico. I knocked at the door and pulled at the bell, but my well-mannered tugs went unanswered. Had I not been penniless, I would have gone away, so now, quite annoyed, I gave the thing a good savage drag. 6 inches of wire straight from the hole, and when released, shot back like a catapult. I heard the distant tinkling of a bell deep inside the house that sounded like distant laughter, and I thought for a moment someone was laughing at me, like Mrs. Keach, Alice. And then the door opened, and there she was.
Oh, Mr. Birkin, hello. I wasn't expecting. Oh God, this place. Can you imagine what it's like to live here? The rooms, echoing, empty, accusing, and the trees, well, they should be chopped down. They move, you know. They advance like ogres, pinning me into this cage. I feel like Sleeping Beauty. It's a living nightmare. I can't sleep for fear, so perhaps not Sleeping Beauty, more sleepless. My bed seems to hold me in the room empty of air, and I lie choking until the sun comes out and touches my grasping hands and brings me back to life. You can't imagine.
Well, yes, I can. It's a little like when a really big shell explodes and all the air in the dugout is sucked out and then blown back in. It's the worst feeling in the world, though it lasts a moment but stays a lifetime.
What's that? I'm sorry, I was carried away for a moment. I'm sorry, Mr. Birkin, but my life here... I suppose you've come to see my husband. Well, he's busy practicing somewhere. I'm sure if you follow the music, he'll be in one of these rooms. Would you like a tour? There's nothing much to see. No, maybe not. Perhaps I could show you my garden. I would love to show you my roses. You look like a man who would appreciate the world and life.
I think I am, though for a while I thought I had left life in those trenches. But now, being here in Oxgodby with the work, the people, you...
Yes, the war must have been terrible. I have my garden, he has his music.
My dear, I see we have a visitor. You've been showing him around, I suppose. Well, not much to see. It's all empty. Empty. It's too big. It's too big for the parish, for us. Can't afford to furnish. Can't afford. Mr. Birkin, I surmise you have come for your instalment.
Yes, if it's no trouble. I've run rather short and can't afford, can't buy the basics.
And is it going well, your great endeavour?
Why, yes, it's truly astonishing. Christ in judgment, showing people the way to heaven and casting the unworthy into hell.
And do you believe in hell, Mr. Birkin?
I have paid it a visit. I was at Passion Day.
I hear that often. Hell on earth. The great war. Yet that lasted but a moment in the eternity of God. The hell of the painting, that forever.
Then I pray that it is empty. But to have a soul condemned to endure what I have lived through for all eternity would be... I couldn't accept that as the action of a loving God.
No. So many would have us believe. But this isn't time for theology. Not when you can't afford your bacon. The smell of it lingers at morning prayer. The congregation comment on it.
You comment on it? I quite like having Mr. Birkin in the bathroom. I quite like knowing that there's someone listening up there, watching over us. I'm sure you do listen to my husband's sermons and watch it from your balcony, don't you?
Why, yes, sometimes. Though more often I've left to go to the chapel with the station master's family, you know.
I hear you're quite behipped with the chapel. You look after the, oh, what do you call them?
The dafties. But they're just boys, a little slower than most, a little more innocent. I like them. Their company is soothing.
Ah, but will they be found in heaven? Are they able to make a rational choice for Christ? That is what matters.
I rather think that what matters is that they have discovered the love of God and respond in whatever way their minds allow. But I cannot say their minds are closed to me now.
Your money? Yes. It's on the side in the kitchen. I have been waiting. It's been there a few days. Well, thank you, Mr. Birkin. I hope you get on rather quickly now. I would like my church back soon.
There's a way to go yet, but it'll be done before the end of the summer, in time for the colder season. But I can't rush it, it's too precious.
Indeed. Well, my wife will see you out.
Before you go, let me show you my roses. And please, forgive my husband. This place, he finds it restrictive. It's not what he's used to. These people are not his type of people.
Like me, I suppose.
No, not like you. He's frightened of you, of what you have seen and been through. He is frightened of what he will see on the wall when you have finished your painting. He is frightened that what he believes may be completely wrong.
But not you.
I'm not frightened of you. I like you. You have heart. You have lived and suffered and chosen to go on living, and I admire that. There is something very good in that, something vivid, something extraordinary.
Steady on, I'm just a man.
Yes, that's it. You're a man, Mr. Birkin. Now, this is my favourite, the Sarah Van Fleet. A pink rose, an old, very old variety. Mine, she has thorns, but she will bloom whatever the weather. She'll be with us until the autumn. I always wear one in my hat. Here, take one.
It's beautiful, like... Thank you, Mrs. Teach.
Alice. It's always only Alice. I like it better than Mrs. Keach. I will visit again soon. I won't disturb you. I will watch you work and see what is revealed. Goodbye.
And she turned and went back into the house, to the emptiness, to him, and to a marriage that was totally stale and without life. People always say that before they do bother me. And why aren't you at school?
We've broken up for a month.
Far too long. But you can always help your mother.
Mum says she doesn't see how you can make a living at this job. That there can't be that many pictures in and behind walls.
Well, I don't make a living.
Well then, why don't you change your job? You could get a job here and stay in Oxford. I know you like it here. Your tick's changed. You're lighter inside. You smile more.
Well, it's tempting, but what would I do? I only know this.
Well, me dad could get you a job as a porter at the station. Or a rent collector for the council. Or maybe a teacher. You've been to college, you have all that fancy knowledge going to waste.
You seem very eager for me to stay. I can't think why.
Well, my mum and dad have taken a liking to you. There's them at Sunday school, they'll miss you if you go. And well, you'd miss me, wouldn't you? Your best friend in the whole village. Even better than Mr. Moon.
Well, I promise I'll think about it. A teacher, eh? Will I get a cane, do you think?
Good, that's settled. We'll be seeing you.
And she was gone, like a damselfly. Here one moment in her brilliance and light, and then gone, leaving the world sad for her passing. Alice's visits were much the same, though hers were always tinged with a hint of teasing. She was always on the verge of a smile. I was sure she was laughing at the inside.
How did you take up this occupation, Mr. Birkin? Did it run in the family?
In a way, my dad was in the cleaning business, but I learned nothing from him. He was never in the mood to teach me, more ready to tear me down and build me up.
I'm sorry. What are you up to now?
I'm cleaning a gent's overcoat. It's a quality piece of work and colour. Must have cost a fortune.
Is it very soiled?
Oh, very. All that tallow candle smoke and grease.
So, tell me, Mr. Birkin, is this an oil painting, a watercolour, or what?
It's all sorts of things, Mrs. Keach. Verdigris, red ochre, wheat flour, limestone putty.
You're making fun of me. I have a paint set at home. I've had it from a child, and it has the most beautiful purple.
I'm not making fun. This artist, he understands having to make do. He paid what he could and made what he could and created a miracle. A miracle. But she wasn't listening. She'd already gone. And I heard her laughter like the bell as she walked home across the field. So, how's the dig?
Nearly done. I'll write a paper, make my name, fly out to Mesopotamia, join one of the big projects. They'll have to take me after what I've discovered here.
And the lost ancestor?
90% certain I know where it is. But I don't want to find it too soon, not until I've done the real work.
Don't you feel, a little bad that you're getting money for this under false pretenses?
Not in the least. Look, I'll do what I've been paid for, and more. Besides, they should be grateful. What with your wall painting and my basilica, will make Oggs Godbury a place of pilgrimage. The village will make its fortune.
So the ends justify the means?
No. Not that. Never that. I've heard that said of our war, that what we have now was worth the lives lost and ruined. But was it? I can't say it was. Do you, Birkin? You must have lost friends, family.
Yes, I lost friends. And no, I don't think it was worth it. When I think of all those stories untold, lives unlived, and those that did live.
You and I? Damaged goods. Lost souls. Seeking our salvation in our art, or our science, or our dreams. Do you dream, Birkin? Do you dream of lying in the arms of Alice Keach in a white-sheeted bed, blissfully happy?
I'm married.
Oh, are you now? You never said.
Vinny, we married before the war. Hardly knew each other. I came back to find her living with another man. She told me she'd left me. But she came back. She always comes back, though I wish to God she wouldn't. She went again just before this job. Told me I was too much, always crying in my sleep or jumping at the slightest noise. Told me I wasn't a man. She never cared, never understood. But she'll be back when she bores of this next one, and maybe one day she'll stay. I wish I could be done with her, but...
Society would disapprove. Well, society be damned. Society is filled with sanctimonious old goats who never saw a battlefield or slept in the mud of a trench. It's full of people whose lives are dreams from which they will never wake up. So, if Alice Keach were to ask you to be her prince and take you away from her ogre of a husband, you'd say no.
I don't know. The shame. I've ruined her.
She's already ruined.
But you could restore her. I've seen her after she's been sitting with you in the church. She floats. She floats.
Stop it. Besides, it'll never happen. Now look, I'd best be getting back. It's Sunday tomorrow and the Elebecks have asked me a favour. They want me to preach at one of the outlying chapels.
But I thought you'd lost your... They haven't converted you, have they?
I don't rightly know. I know I enjoy being in chapel. I don't listen to the rants and the ravings, but the prayers have a charm and the songs are wonderful. And that moment at the end where they sit with their heads bowed, trying to make sense of what they've just experienced, there's magic there.
But to preach, what will you say?
I'll tell them about the painting and the judgment, I suppose. And I'll keep the hymns long and the sermons short and pray they don't mind if I'm done because of the hour. The service was memorable. I borrowed Mr. Ellebeck's bike and rode the long, flat, unwinding road to the hamlet. A couple of cottages, a duck pond and a chapel. I was met by a good-looking shy woman who looked at me as if I was sent to be the father of her children. If I'd stayed in Oxcobby, there were 4 in the congregation in addition to the girl. They looked expectant, but after a rambling, incoherent prayer and 2 long hymns, I finally broke down. Look here, I'm just filling in. And as I've never preached before, and almost certainly will never do so again, I thought I'd tell you what I'm doing in Oxcobby. And if you want to leave or catch a sleep, that's all right by me. But they stayed, and afterwards I was shaken warmly by the hand and told the whole congregation to visit me and see this wonder of God's judgment. I was invited for tea with the organist, and her mother fussed around me as if I were a prince. On the bookshelf by the door was a photo of a young man in uniform, their son, Percy. He looked like his sister. He had a wide, innocent face and eyes that were remembering sheep stocks and wheat harvests and longing for the fields of home, a home he would never return to, a home I was now visiting, a substitute son for the afternoon. Cycling back, I railed at the men who sent us to that hell and used us for cannon fodder. You bastards, you awful bloody bastards, you needn't have started it, you could have finished it before you did. But only a couple of horses were listening and they soon lost interest and went back to grazing.
So, how was Barton Ferry?
Well, I learned one thing, I'm not cut out for the life of a preacher.
Did you ever see Lucy Sykes? You did. She's a good-looking lass, isn't she? She's got great hips, my mum says. She'll give you lots of children, Mr. Birkin. Maybe I can ask my dad whether it's within the rules to invite her to our treat so he can have another good look at her. Maybe she'll be the reason you stop it. I wouldn't mind. I'm not the jealous type.
No, but you do like making trouble for me. Lucy Sykes. Well, if she comes to the treat and there's a dance, who knows?
That's the spirit. Think of dancing with her and we'll start with that.
But it was Alice Keach I dreamt of that night.
Hello, Mr. Birkin. Fancy finding me here underneath all of this whitewash and grime. You don't know how long I have waited to be uncovered, discovered and adored by a man who can appreciate such things.
But, Mrs. Keach.
Alice. And you're...
Tom. But I don't understand the face in the picture. It's not you.
But it is me. Are you disappointed? That's very rude of you. I thought that... I have seen how you look at me. I have seen how when you should be concentrating on your painting, you sneak little peeks at me nestled in the pews. We women notice these things, and we know what they mean. You're falling in love with me, aren't you, Tom?
But I can't. I daren't. You're married. You're married to him, to Keach.
A marriage of convenience. For him, at least, he otherwise. I have suffered. He isn't a man. He is a puppet, dancing to the tune of the bishop or the church council. He has no love for me. Some days I doubt he knows I'm there. We sleep in separate rooms, you know. Always have. That's why there's no children.
But I'm married too.
To Vinny. I know. But that is no marriage, Tom. You're just a place to come home to. Vinny thinks you are soft. She has you tied around her finger. She comes and goes as she pleases. She sleeps with who she pleases. And doesn't give you a second thought until the money's around. She is the prodigal daughter, coming home unrepentant and itching to be off again when she can raise the cash. You see, we're both the same. Lost. And searching for the other. Kiss me, Tom. Take me away. And we can start again someplace different. I know you want to.
I do want to, but I must finish the picture. First, I must finish the picture.
But by then it'll be too late. Too late. And you'll miss your chance. Don't miss your chance.
Oh, damn. Alice Keach, Alice, I don't know, I just don't know.
You look like you've had a rough night. Fancy a cup of tea?
I slept badly.
Nightmares?
Of a sort. Dreams of something I can't ever have.
Oh, forbidden love.
I know it. But can love ever be forbidden? I remember Keach talking about that last Sunday. Something about how love can cover a multitude of sins. What do you reckon to that?
I don't think much about sin, to be honest. Not since the war. It was the war that taught me there's nothing I can do or think that could compare with the sins of our leaders sending us off to fight. I don't think love could cover that sin. I saw precious little evidence of love in those battlefields.
There was love. I know there was, but it was love of the small things. Letters from home with a lock of hair, kindness of your mates, sharing a woodbine, and sometimes I think there was something greater. You know, the ones who won medals won them not for killing the enemy, but for saving their friends. The ones who braved no man's land to drag a wounded man back over the top and into the trench. You must have seen it.
I did. I saw it. And maybe you're right. Maybe I need to look at those days again and see them afresh. But I can't bear to turn and look at those things that cause me pain. I dream them in the night. God help me if I have to see them in the light of day. Anyway, the tea and some news. I think I am really very nearly done for definite with the basilica. I can turn all my attention and efforts in finding the late Miss Harebrond's long-dead ancestor and his final resting place.
So then you'll leave. No looking back. You'd not think of staying.
Wow. There's nothing keeping me here. Not like you and your chapel family, and the organist at Barton Ferry, and of course, the divine Mrs. Keach. No, I'll be gone soon. And you?
Just a little more to do. You know, it's a wonderful work, but so full of mystery. There's this one figure I've discovered being subject to the very worst punishments. Demons pushing him headfirst into hell with an uncanny relish, and round his neck a charm shaped like a crescent moon. His face is so detailed and that charm so obvious, he must be a local. Someone held in particularly low worth by the community to be put on display so blatantly. They must have hated him. What can he have done, do you reckon, to be inspired with all that hatred?
Interesting. And what have you discovered about our esteemed artist?
Oh, I can tell you his size, his height, the colour of his hair, the manner of his death.
You amaze me, my dear Holmes, and how do you do that?
is stuck in the paint where he leant in too close, and there are handprints where he stretched to reach beyond the length of his ladder. This was his life's work. He was immersed in it, his masterpiece.
You said you know how he died.
He didn't finish it. Bits in the corners are rubbish compared to the rest. The paint is cheap, the quality of the finish poor. His apprentice finished it. It's my guess that he fell. Probably died instantly. Overstretched, trying to reach a hand or a foot. Fall from that height, bound to be fatal. And the last thing he'd have seen as he dropped would have been Jesus in judgment.
Now there's a cheery thought. Ah, Mrs. Keach. We were just talking about death and judgment and hell. You might care to join us.
Oh, we have spoken about this before with my husband. Do you know, I don't think I believe in hell anymore. Do you, Mr. Moon?
Well, no, not in a metaphysical sense, perhaps, but like Birkin, I was at Passchendaele.
Yes. I have heard many people refer to it as hell. But as my husband says, it came to an end. The fields are ploughed over and the crops are planted. The birds sing and the sun shines. The hell of this painting is forever.
And who says that Passchendaele is over?
When we had dragged ourselves back from all that bloodiness,
Life that we returned to seemed brighter than we remember it.
I once thought that there might be something said for
Seasons in hell. When we had sloughed off all those pals that had gone down in death. During the day, that is. At night,
they return, and we want no part of what they've become, had no desire to go with them. Theirs was a different world.
their hell is eternal.
Yes. I see. I'm very sorry, Mr. Moon. I have been most insensitive.
But I'm sure Mr. Birkin has a more enlightened view, having lived with hell these past few months. What do you think?
Well, it's real enough. It's there in war, and yes, sometimes in marriage gone wrong, it's there. It can pull you down, force you to choose, to change, to... Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Alice?
Yes.
Nothing. Sorry, all this talk of hell. Can we down tools and do something different?
Oh, you could go to the fields. It's harvest. They're always short. I could bring you drinks and sandwiches, if you like.
Well, Moon, what do you say?
Come, ye thankful people, come, sing the song of harvest home.
So the next day, we downed tools and went off to a big field where Mossop was working. It was a day of great heat. The barley heads were brittle and bowed, and you could have sworn there was the smell of baking in the air. When the dew had dried, the reaper binder, its sails flickering, the team, fresh and skittish, began tossing out sheaves, and we started to stook. Heavens, the thistles! After a while, I learned to kick sheaves over until I saw a firm handhold before jamming them, heads together, into the stubble, 4 or 5 heads to a stook. And we went on this way, back and forth, across the cracked earth in the growing heat, until midday and a meal, then more of the same until a break for tea at 4.
And we finished at dusk, the first star coming over the dark hills, crusted in the dust, baked hard in by the sun and sweat, tired, but alive and glad of it.
Don't forget, it's the Sunday school treat tomorrow. We're expecting you. You'll have them daft geese to keep an eye on.
Ah, and can Mr. Moon join us on this holiday treat?
Why no? Sorry, Mr. Moon, but the treat is a reward for service to the chapel, and you've done out for us. Besides your church,
How do you reckon that?
your twang, your dead posh.
What about charity? Aren't we all Christians?
This has nothing to do with religion, Mr. Moon. This is to do with the rules, and the rules say you can't come. Not that I mind. I think you're a nice man. Despite what some in the village might say.
I I'm flattered. And will Miss Sykes of Barton Ferry be there?
I expect not. I asked my dad, but he said that Barton have their own treat, so Mr. Birkin will only have me for company.
Oh, seems like you've had a lucky escape.
Ah, well, tomorrow I shall seek out the dead and drag their bones from the earth.
Each to their own, Mr. Boone. But personally, I'd rather be on the treat than playing with dead men's bones. See you tomorrow, Mr. Birkin. 8.
So the next day, we went to the nearest roadside where a man and a woman were waiting with 2 small boys. I heard the clip-clop of hooves, and they came, the morning sun glinting on their chestnut and black backs, glinting from martingales, medalled like generals, their manes plaited with patriotic ribbons. Great magical creatures, soon to disappear from highway and furrow. Did I know it then? No. But neither did any in Oxclough. How could they? So we clattered off, aware that we were part of the ancient cycle of the farming year, and our passing was token that the harvest would soon be in. We picked up the elevates at the station, then on, over the bridge and between fields. I was given a sandwich by Catherine, who knew I'd be hungry, knew that I was always hungry. In many ways, she was the only person who knew me in that village. The only person who has ever seen through to the heart of me. Not Moon, not Alice, but a station master's daughter, who saw me and loved me despite everything. For me, that will always be the summer day of summer days. A cloudless sky, ditches and roadside deep in grass, poppies, cuckoo pipes, trees heavy with leaf, orchards bulging over hedge briars.
Look yonder. Doesn't it make your heart swell and make you long to sing?
And then, strolling mildly across a steep grassy escarpment, an immense white horse, a gigantic enlargement of the kind of horse that journeyman painters would knock out for a sovereign a go. And then we were there, in the lee of this magnificent ancient mare. And there was no escape from the sun, so we took off our jackets, exposing our braces and the tapes of our long woolen underpants. When we arrived, it was dinner, and Cathy and the other girls unwrapped hard-boiled eggs and soggy sandwiches sodden with tomato, and there was tea and a sun blessing that haunts me still.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Afterwards, the courting couples sidled off, the women talked, and the men became boys again, and played tag and wrestled and ran till their hearts would burst. So, eating, drinking, dozing, wooing, the day passed until night came and the horses were led from their pasture. Then, as the first star rose in the sky and the swallows twisted and turned above the bracken, our wagons rumbled down from above the white horse, across the vale toward home. The Sunday school treat was over, and my heart ached at the pain of its passing. On arrival, Alice was waiting.
Hello, Cathy. I have sad news. Your friend, Emily Clough, she died this afternoon.
Oh. I thought she had. There was a moment when a swallow flew so close to my face, its wings almost brushed my hair. And I thought, well, that's Emily. On her way to heaven. She loves the tree. So she's come to say goodbye and see it one last time.
She's a lovely girl.
She's as innocent as the day. I wish I had her heart.
So, did you have a nice time?
I think that perhaps this was the happiest day of my life. I'll not part with a moment of it as long as I live.
So why not stay? Have it forever.
It won't always be like it was today. People will grow old, move away, and die. The bright belief that there is always something marvellous around every corner will fade. I'll take the happiness of today and treasure it, but there's no guarantees for tomorrow.
More's the pity.
More's the pity. I only left Oxford once to go to Britain with the Elevex to buy a new organ for the chapel.
Right, your dad says you're asked to come because you have a real eye for quality. There's no doubt in it. Everybody says so. We want the best that we can and I've been asked to come and play and make sure it sounds as good as it looks.
The piano shop was hosted by a southerner, so the Elbecs were instantly on their guard, and when he learned we only wanted second-hand, our presence was wiped from his mind and he wandered off in search of more lucrative customers, leaving us the chance to try our hand at the used items at the back of the store.
Which we did, and very soon we were singing and playing hymns as if we were in chapel. Ready?
Will your anchor hold in the storms of life? When the clouds unfold their wings of strife, when the strong tides lift and the cables strain, will your anchor drift or firm remain? We have an anchor that keeps the soul steadfast and sure while the billows roll, fastened to a rock which cannot move, rounded for the deep in the Saviour's love.
Why, Kathy, hello. And Mr. Berkeley, too. We wondered who was making that heavenly round. Kathy, you have a wonderful way with the piano. I only wish it was played that way in church. And Mr. Birkin, a fine voice.
Oh, you're making fun of us.
Not at all. If I am smiling, it is because of joy. For a moment I thought I was in heaven. Then I came to my senses and realised it was only ribbon.
I think we'll buy this one, you know. It'll go down well in Oxcobby. Mr. Birkin, we only have £120, but the ticket says 150. So go and do us a deal and be persuasive.
Right on.
You like Mr. Birkin, don't you?
I do, yeah. He's a grand friend to have. My mum and dad like him too. They say give it a few months and we'll have him baptised.
And he'll not be here in a few months. His work is almost done.
No, he'll stay. But his friends are here. He likes us.
I'm sure he does. But he'll not stay all the same. Life won't let him. I know he wants to, but we don't always get to do what we really want to do. Duty calls, gets in the way. Or life, or death.
Excuse me, Mrs. Keach, I see Mr. Birkin is wanting me. Inspector's wanting the cash. It's nice talking to you. But to be honest, I don't know really what you were saying. Bye.
Bye.
That evening, everything changed. Tom came back from Ripon, and when I went across to ask about his day, he couldn't look at me. He'd gotten cooler, not unfriendly, just lacking what we shared till that point. And then I knew that he knew. I asked him outright who he'd met, what he'd heard.
You never told me you had an MC. You brought in the wounded from no man's land.
Why should I get a medal for doing what was right? The last man I brought back died. I had him over my shoulders, and I heard him whisper love to his mother, and then his breath got long and harsh, and that was it. He was gone.
You were very brave.
Stupid, perhaps. But I've always had a mad streak. It found me out. And now you've found me out.
You were court-martialed, thrown into the glass house for dishonouring the King's commission.
So they said. All I did...
Don't tell me what it was you did. I don't want to know. I don't want to hear it. I suppose you can't help it that you were born that way, or maybe it was your school. They say those schools make a man. I'm not judging you.
Aren't you? Look, I did my duty. I fought and nearly died. And when I found love, they dragged it through the muck and made me a monster. There wasn't a day in that prison that I didn't get a beating. Eventually, they put me in solitary and suicide watch.
What happened to the other?
The other man, he was disciplined. Said he'd been used, abused. That hurt more than the beatings. But I understood. He had a wife and kids back home. I expect he's with them now. I wonder if he ever thinks of me. I think of him. Sometimes. But only sometimes. So, what now? Do we keep our distance? Do we stop our casual conversation and just become polite neighbours?
No. I've lost too many friends. I won't lose another. But it will take me a while. I don't know how you make me feel.
I hope I don't make you feel sick. That's what they said at the court-martial. Well, I appreciate all that you've said to me. And all I ask is, will you take me by the hand?
I'll be gone in a few days. Keach comes tomorrow to pay me off. He'll be glad to be rid of me.
I hear he's going too. Being transferred down south. Away from all these godless Yorkshiremen. So you haven't much time to make up your mind.
About what?
About who? Ours.
It's impossible. I wouldn't. She couldn't. It's not right.
And yet,
And yet,
it's your last chance for happiness.
look, Luke, I can't talk about this. Now, how about that body? Shall I join you in the field tomorrow and help you look? One last secret.
Righto. I know where it is. Exactly. I've known for weeks. But we'll dig it up, tell the family, meet after breakfast.
Right. Just one or two last things left to do. A few bits.
You're hanging on. Hoping. I know. Well, I'll hope with you.
Everybody says you're going day after tomorrow. That's not true though, is it? Tell me, Mr. Birkin. Tell me, please.
I won't lie to you, Kathy.
But you like it here. Everybody likes you. Everybody loves you. I love you.
I know you do. And I love you, Kathy Ellerbeck. You're the best thing to happen to me ever.
Then don't go.
I can't stay. I don't really belong, and there's someone back home who needs me. I've been away too long.
Well, will you come back and visit?
I might.
And have dinner with us and visit the chapel and...
I want to, I do.
But you won't.
Probably not. But I might.
I'll take it. Well, good luck then.
Nearly done? Good. A rather hideous work, if you ask me. And again, I'm no expert. I've left your money by the stove. I've deducted costs for heating and rent, so it's not that much, but it is what we agreed.
Good of you.
What's next for you, Mr. Birkin? Another church? Another secret to uncover?
I've an offer of a job in Oxford, restoring a wall in a church there. That's probably next. The pay's good and, well, there's nothing else.
Good. You won't starve then. And I imagine, being Oxford, that theirs is a more quality piece than our provincial effort.
You don't get it, do you? This is probably the greatest sacred painting in England. I don't believe there's one better anywhere. It is magnificent and it's yours. You should be rejoicing. This will bring in visitors, the press, money. I suppose you don't care about that now, do you? I hear you're moving on.
Yes. Somewhere better for both of us. More of our people.
Can't think of anywhere better than here, Mr. Keach. Still, each to their own. Thank you for the money. Now I have a few final things to do. Good day. The next day, I was in the fields with Moon and his divining rod, as he called it. He was prodding the ground, stopping every few yards and exclaiming,
Got it! Here! We dig here!
"You make it sound like buried treasure."
It is, in a way. Nice bit of stone. But why bury him here, outside the church boundaries? Something's odd. Let's have the lid off. Well, well. Here we have it. This tells all. He must have converted to Islam. That's why he's buried outside. He's a heathen. But as close to the church as it's possible to be without compromising the sacred soil. Hateful people to refuse a man a grave just because of his religion.
I've seen him before. He's in my picture. Come and see him. That's him. There. See the necklace. Condemned to burn forever in hell, and his witnesses, the whole of the village, every Sunday, reminded of his sin and its punishment. Poor soul.
Look, I think I'll keep the necklace. If it gets out that Miss Harebrone's ancestor was a Muslim, it might create a lot of ill will. You won't say anything, will you?
Cross my heart.
Good. Some secrets are best left hidden, buried. To let them loose can be dangerous. So, we did it. You and I, we both came seeking and we both found what we were looking for. Not a bad end to the summer. Not a bad summer.
No. Thank you for being here with me through it, Moon. You're part of what's made it good, I know that.
Wow. I'm touched. Look, I'm off to see the Colonel. He'll want to see and do the right thing. There'll probably be a reburial, might even be an installation in the church. Lots to do before I leave. Maybe we can manage a tea later?
Sure.
My husband says you're about to flit.
That's right.
Without saying goodbye.
Well,
They'll miss you.
I know. And I'll miss them.
I'll miss you. You do know that, don't you? You do know how I feel.
I was never sure. I wanted to be sure. And now
It's too late.
it's too late. In another world we would have been together, but not this one.
More's the pity.
More's the pity.
I fell in love with you. And yet, we never... Goodbye, Tom.
Goodbye, Alice. Before I left, I went for one last look at the picture. The reason I'd come to Oxfordby in the first place. And as I stood before that great spread of colour, I felt a tingling of excitement and assurance that a time would come when others would stand here too and understand. And at such a time, for a few of us, there will always be a tugging of the heart, knowing that we have experienced a precious moment and it will soon be gone. We can ask and ask, but we cannot have again what once seemed ours forever. The way things looked, that church alone in the fields, a bed on a belfry floor, a remembered voice, the touch of a hand, a loved face, they've gone. And we can only wait for the pain to pass. All this happened so long ago, and I never returned, never wrote, never met anyone with news of Oxgoby. So in memory, it stays still as I left it. A sealed room, furnished by the past. Airless, still, ink long dry on a put-down pen. But this was something I knew nothing of, as I closed the gate and set off across the meadow to my train.